get sick of hearing me complaining about the hard disk drive crash. A lot of the videos I had done on this reassembly are gone. I've got individual pictures. My data recovery program that I bought collected the JPEGs, but it didn't collect the MOVs. So I will try and explain what was done as much as possible, and I'll use what movies I've got and what pictures I've got to move on through. But I'm going to use the manuals for part of it. And so it starts with the reassembly of the front and rear hub and the oil delivery sleeve, and then that whole assembly gets put into the case, and then you build on top of that. So here we have a front hub. It's got springs right there, a pair of springs for each peg. It's got the metal and the fiber. These are the metal ones. Here's the fiber. Here's the clutch discs, friction plates. They call them drive plates in this manual. This is a Lincoln manual, but it is a Hydramatic transmission. So in this one, you can see they're showing a dark portion and a light portion. The light is the cork, and the dark is the fiber. And it goes with the outer, and they're opposite on the opposite side. So it goes with the fiber outside edge up. So when you have this down on the bench like this with the pegs sticking up, it goes inner cork, outer fiber should be visible, and then a metal plate. One of the older videos, or the newer transmissions, so into the 50s, the one I've got is a 52, but 53 and up apparently uses different number of plates, driven plates and friction plates, and it also makes reference to a cone shape of these plates. Mine does not have that. These are flat. I could not see any difference between them, so shouldn't matter which way they go in. So you want these to move freely, so there's a rounded and a squared out portion. The square portion goes over the pegs, and the rounded portion goes over the springs. When I took this apart, this being the front hub, gets a spiral band around it. This gets a simple unidirectional band. It's the rear hub, clutch pack. There was a thrust washer down in there underneath the clip, the retaining clip. The manual makes no mention of it, and it has no pictures of it. So I'm not sure why it was in there. I'm leaving it out. I have been trying to illustrate how to reassemble this transmission by using old videos and pictures, and it's just not working out. So I thought I would take apart this old one and show you how it comes apart as far as the clutch packs go, and then put it all back together and show you what to check for. So stay tuned. I'm going to put it in the vise with a rag, which is over here, clamp it in. I have to take the ring out that holds the rear drum, and then I can take out the oil sleeve and then the front pack as well, and then I'll show you how to take those apart. When you put it in a vise like this, upright, the rear drum, the rear hub should not drop down as much as this one has. It is missing a clip. But there's a snap ring up here, which I'll use the pliers to take out, and then I'll take the rear drum off. Once again, special pliers meant for this kind of a snap ring. Off it comes. Off comes the drum. Watch the inner spline, or the sun gear that's here. It has to drop down into the friction plates. Yes, it was missing a ring in here. And I know who left it out. So this steel ring goes on here. It's supposed to actually fit and lock onto these splines. That one's a bit worn, I guess. Okay, So now I got to get that thrust washer out. I'll let gravity do the work. There'll be another ring in there. So here they are. The steel goes towards the inside, away from the oil delivery sleeve. Same with this one. On the other end, and then the thrust washer. The thrust washers go against the oil delivery sleeve, like that. And this ring, shown in the manual as well, has a flat spot right there, and that fits on a flat spot inside. So now, get that ring off. All we got to do is find the split. The best way to get the drums apart is with a press. And I know not everybody has one. The manual says to use an arbor press, and you don't need a lot of force. You can use a vise, but it's really tricky and I wouldn't advise it. You can damage something using that. So I put a little bit of pressure on this. The ring is now loose and I should be able to pry it out. All I have to do is get in there with a screwdriver. There we go. And then you just work it around. And that pops out. And you can release the pressure. And it will pop up eventually. So it appears to be stuck. That's not good. To be continued. So I had to get this out by turning it upside down, opposite direction to what it is now, and tapping it with a nylon hammer as I spun it. And eventually it came clear, but it has got some damage. The springs are bent for some reason. These are dual springs. There's an inner and an outer. Looks like the thrust washer in here is completely sacked. The discs, the friction plates, are in real bad shape. And one thing to note is that the square portion goes around the main peg, and then the springs go into these recesses that are circular. And that's where the circular part of the steel disc. So I'll take that out of there and I'll show you what they're like. So I can see why this transmission was abandoned. So this is the front hub. Nothing wants to come off yet. Got lots of things that are stuck. So I'll pull that out. This is the friction plate, which is completely worn out. And then the steel rings go in between the friction plates. So this is looking pretty ugly. And these ones do have a cone shape to them. The replacements I put in, the new replacements I put in my transmission, which is in the car, I'm quite sure were flat. But here's a steel plate, has the round and the square. Square goes over the pegs that are already in the hub. The round is for the springs. And then the friction plates go on. So from the way it's sitting now, the friction plates would go, it would go friction plate, steel, friction plate, steel, friction plate. The fiber, which you can't see of course on this, is all worn off, would be on the outside, and the cork would be on the inside. If you take a screwdriver and gently pry on this and pull it up, not creating any marks. looking like there's some badness there too, like the seal's no good. At this point I think I need 2 screwdrivers. Or pliers in a screwdriver. There we go. Another bearing surface there. This is just steel on steel with lubrication. See, it's gotten hot. That surface looks pretty good. Some marks in here, probably from the springs being bent, little bits and grit and so on. And then here is the seal. You can see it's missing a chunk. And this one has the brass ring expander. The new seals don't seem to use. So you have to pry that out. Carefully put a new one in. Use lots of transmission lube. It makes life a lot easier. And then you can take a rounded tool, say something like this, use that edge. When you replace the seal, rest it on here gently. If you put any kind of pressure, you can catch the seal and rip it, and then just work it around slowly, putting slight pressure on it to get it to go back in. This one, of course, is worn out, so it's easier. Line it up, square hole, round hole, and then the springs go into these recesses. You got a bit of the seal sitting here. There it is. Oh, I got it crooked, so. So it's down in there now. It was catching probably because of excessive wear between the hubs, but this does not rotate independently of this. Of course, they rotate together. The steel on steel is just to allow this to move up and down slightly. So I'm probably not going to put these back in because they're binding and it's just a real pain and there's no point. But it goes in. This is the top. This is the bottom. So it goes back in with the square on the pegs. As I've said many times, I've taken the springs and straightened them as much as I can. I'll just put them back in. Those really need to be replaced. But just for example's sake, that's what's going to happen. And then when this goes in, these fit on top of it. With the discs on the ring gear. Some of these might have the pronounced cone they've got in them because I had to pry them off because they would not clear. I don't see any burring on the gear. Might be a little bit on the outside edge. Can't feel it. But something was holding them. Now here's more good news. I think that might have been a thrust washer, but it's kind of hard to tell. Don't know what that came off of. Came out of this hub anyway. So I put it back together. On a good one, we put it in the press. Press it down with the discs, the plates, and then put the snap ring back in. This one I just tapped it into place because it's also stiff and locked up that it held its position. But you should have to use a press. If it's sticking, it's not going to work properly. So then that whole works goes on to here, like that. And then the rings, thrust washers and the ring go back on. When the hub slides on, it has to mesh with the friction plate. Make sure that it goes in slowly. Do not force anything or you'll break the friction plates. And I'm sure you don't want that. So you have to check these for play here too. I'll check that what it is. This one seems excessive, and that one definitely is excessive. So spring, peg, all the way around. These go on the pegs. It's in there. I'll clean this up actually with some emery just to so it'll drop in. Honest. There we go. I'll drop the steel ring down into there, the flat spot in the right place. Make sure it's seated properly with a screwdriver. And you can see on the spindle as well, the shoulder is exposed. So then this goes in, again lots of oil and lube, and there is a thickness for that as well. I'll try to remember to check. So it's spinning pretty well. These rings have a direction. It's not too obvious on this one, but there's a bevel on that. So find the bevel, and that should be pointing towards where you have to access with the pliers. So the narrower gap where the pliers can grab it. One thing to make sure of on the oil delivery sleeve is that the passage is open from the oil delivery hole into the ring grooves. And they're showing a paper clip going through in this case. And make sure when you blow that out that it does indeed allow air into the ring, past the ring groove, into this lubricating channel. So the rear hub, same idea. Guide pins for the springs, same as the front. Same seal, looks exactly the same. You have to be very careful putting that in because it's quite easy to rip it. I had to replace one of them because I used a screwdriver instead of a rounded edge, and I just caught it on the piston, the side of the bore, and then it ripped. And I did not put much force on it either. So one thing to make sure of when you take these units apart is take lots of pictures. Make sure you know exactly where things go. I have 3 manuals that describe the Hydramatic, and none of them are that great on all the details of everything, where to put things. I'm counting a lot on you knowing what you're doing. If you're like me, you don't. So it's usually a couple thousandths you want for play within the ring, within the groove rather, for the ring, and you can see that that has a shouldered ring. So not much you can do about checking it other than putting it into the hub and making sure there's not too much of a gap here. So when it closes pretty tight. This goes narrow end down into this front hub like that, and it clears the ring in here. So that's why it has that recess. So that's very important. You get that the right way around. Besides which, if it's this way, it won't go in deep enough. So then you can use a screwdriver if you're careful. Get that down into the bevel. These are casting iron rings, so you have to be careful you don't break them. So I don't like to use a hammer on any of this. There you go. And they drop in. And then do the same thing with the big hub. Looking at it again internally, you can see a shoulder on one side here and not on the other. So I'm going to take the chance that the widest portion of the bearing cap should be this side. And that may help with my clearance problems. Make sure everything is clean before you start reassembling. And this manual labels all the holes, so you can blow those out with compressed air. Make sure they're clear. Coming up are several pictures from the good transmission. That's the plate, the friction plates. So here's the piston and seal from the front hub. For reassembly, get some transmission lube and use lots of it. There's the hub, the thrust washer, and the ring. Same thing goes for the rear hub. Springs, a pair for each peg. Seal arrangement and piston. And it has more steel plates and friction plates than the front one. And that does vary with the year. Mine uses 4 and 7. Apparently some use 3 and 5. I heard of one that was 3 and 7 as well. So check to make sure. When you order it, you'll have to state the year of the transmission, which is on the side tag. And if you don't have that, you're going to have to do some talking to people. So the front hub has 2 thrust washers, one steel, one's bronze, and a snap ring to hold everything in place. The steel goes into the hub, and the thrust washer, bronze washer, goes towards the oil delivery sleeve, which is over here. So the thrust washer is here, then the steel, then the hub. And the steel washer has a locating flat spot, which has to fit exactly in the right position inside here. Up on the bench and everything would be clean, but like I said, this is a scrap transmission. So the front band has to go on the front hub, the rear one can go on later. This is the portion for the adjusting bolt down in here, and this is the portion for the servo. So go that way. And then it can go in like there. Get the band out of the way. There we have it. And this has to go on. And while it's loose, put this in, that pin up. Tighten these and torque them between 40 and 50 psi, or psi, foot-pounds. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, or even notify, or any of the above, or all of the above. Thank you.